You ever make a money decision that, looking back, you think, what on earth was I thinking? Yeah, we've all been there. Well, today we're going to dig into exactly why that happens. We're tapping into the incredible work of Yale professor Robert Shiller to explore behavioral finance and uncover the hidden and, let's be honest, kind of strange psychology that's really calling the shots with your wallet.
Just think about that for a second. You know that sharp, gut punch feeling of losing a $10 bill? Now compare that to the feeling of finding one. It's nice, sure, but it's not the same, is it? Logically, they should be equal and opposite, right? But for most of us, they're not even in the same league. That pain of loss is just so much more powerful.
That very feeling, that weird imbalance, well, that's actually at the heart of a huge revolution in economics. It's a whole new way of thinking that's challenging all those old, neat and tidy theories about how we're supposed to act with our money.
See, for the longest time, traditional finance was built on this idea of an ideal human, this perfectly rational being, almost like a robot, making every single choice with pure logic. But then behavioral finance comes along and says, whoa, hold on a minute. Real people just don't work that way. It gets that we're emotional, that we use mental shortcuts, and that our decisions are often, well, predictably irrational.
And that's the bottom line, isn't it? Our financial systems aren't built for robots, they're built for us, for complex, kind of messy, and honestly, fascinating humans. And understanding our behavior, all our quirks included, is the key to understanding how the whole system really works.
Okay, so you might be thinking we're about to list all the ways our brains mess up with money. And we'll get there, for sure. But Professor Shiller points out something really surprising. The story of our financial behavior doesn't actually start with our flaws, it starts with our moral compass. You know, when you hear the name Adam Smith, you probably think of one book, The Wealth of Nations. It's basically the founding text of modern economics. But here's the kicker. 17 years before he wrote that, he wrote a completely different book called The Theory of Moral Sentiments, and it had nothing to do with economics. It was a deep, deep dive into human psychology and morality.
And Smith's big idea here is it's brilliant. He noticed that when we're kids, we just want praise, right? We want that applause, that pat on the back. But as we mature, something really important shifts. We stop caring so much about just getting the applause and start caring about being the kind of person who actually deserves it. We want to be praiseworthy. And this, right here, is the profound insight. This internal drive we have for integrity, for real character, that's like the invisible glue holding our entire economy together. It's the reason most people don't try to cheat you every chance they get, not just because they're afraid of getting caught, but because it just wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't be praiseworthy.
So, okay, we're wired for integrity. That's part one. But, and this is a big but, that's only half the story. Because even with the best intentions in the world, our brains have some pretty well-documented glitches. Think of them as bugs in our financial software that predictably lead us down the wrong path. All right, let's talk about prospect theory. This is a huge Nobel Prize-winning idea. It says that when we're facing a risky choice, we don't think about the final outcome in some grand, absolute sense. Nope. Instead, we latch onto a reference point. So let's say you bought a stock at $100. That $100 is now your anchor. Everything from that point on is judged as either a gain or a really painful loss from that specific number. And this whole theory really stands on two big pillars. First, there's loss aversion, and that takes us right back to that $10 bill at the beginning. The pain of a loss feels roughly twice as strong as the pleasure of an equal gain. And second, we've got this thing called probability blindness. Our brains are just not great with the nuances of probability. We tend to round things off. Something with a tiny 1 in a million chance gets mentally filed under can't happen. Or if it's something we're scared of, it suddenly jumps into the maybe pile, and we treat it like a very real threat.
So, where does this show up in the real world? Well, it's exactly why someone might anxiously buy an insurance policy for their new $5,000 diamond ring. It's a small, vivid loss they can easily picture, while at the same time completely neglecting to get life insurance, which would protect against a way bigger but much more abstract financial disaster.
All right, let's try something. I want to demonstrate another one of these mental bugs with a quick experiment, and I want you to actually do this with me. Go ahead and pause if you need to. I want you to write down a range for the total number of languages in the world. So a low number and a high number. And make that range wide enough that you're 90% sure the right answer is somewhere inside it. Got it? Okay, go for it.
Okay, you got your range? The actual answer, according to the World Authority on this, is 6,909. Now, be honest, did that number fall inside your range? When Professor Schiller does this experiment in his classes, he finds that most people, even super smart Yale students, make a range that is way, way too narrow. They miss the target.
So what just happened there? Well, if you missed it, don't worry, you are in very good company. You just experienced the overconfidence bias firsthand. It's this universal tendency we have to believe we know more than we actually do. Our feeling of being certain is often completely disconnected from how accurate we really are. It's a bug that gets everyone, from students to so-called experts.
Okay, so let's put these two big pieces together. On one hand, we have this deep-seated, innate desire to have integrity. On the other hand, our brains have these predictable little bugs that trip us up. So, how do these two powerful and kind of opposing forces collide to shape our financial world?
Well, the reality is, these bugs can be exploited. I mean, think about it. That flight insurance they try to sell you at the airport, that's playing directly on our probability blindness. Pricing an item at $9.99 instead of $10, that's a simple little trick that messes with our reference points. Even the way we sometimes hire these super charismatic CEOs, we might be falling for overconfidence, seeing a genius pattern where there might just be a lucky streak. These are all business strategies built on our predictable irrationality.
But, and this is the really hopeful part of Schiller's work, we're not helpless victims here. As a society, we actually learn, we evolve, we build systems, things like financial regulations, professional ethics, a strong culture, that basically put up guardrails to protect us from our worst impulses, and at the same time, create environments that reward our better nature.
And this example just nails it perfectly. Why is the milk you drink safe? Sure, there are government regulations, and they help. But as journalist Anna Bernasek points out, the system really works because of the integrity of the thousands of people all along the chain. The farmer, the truck driver, the person stocking the shelf. They do the right thing because they know at the end of that chain, a real person, somebody's kid, is going to drink that milk.
And that leaves us with this one big final thought to chew on. In this huge, complex machine we call the economy, what really holds it all together? Is it the thousands of pages of laws and regulations we write? Or is it that simple, ancient, and deeply human desire we all share, not just to be praised, but to be praiseworthy?